Hello and welcome to another episode of Varsity360. I'm Columbian sports editor Micah Rice, joined today by Meg Wachnick from the First Pacific Financial Studio. Again, thanks to First Pacific Financial for letting us use the space and this equipment. They support high school athletics, we support high school athletics, and by extension, we support the community at large, so thank you to them. But part of supporting the community and the way the community can really rally around a football team in this instance was shown at Woodland High School. Woodland will go into the background, kind of what happened with the levy failure last spring there that put their athletics programs in a real sort of financially dire situation, and threw a curveball for a football team that has had just an outstanding season. To recap, the Woodland Beavers, 2A Greater St. Helens League champions, they win their Week 10 district playoff game and are headed to the state playoffs, and then they got the first round draw. What happened, Meg?
Well, they're headed to Clarkston, first state playoff game since 2013, but all of a sudden, they're without transportation. That's what happens when you have a double levy failure. That was one of the cuts that the Woodland Public Schools had to make. No bus transportation for any of their high school athletic teams. But that's what happens when you talk about a community rallying behind their teams. They have transportation, they have hotel accommodations, they have meals, they have snacks. They've got everything. They are heading to the east side, all in style.
Nice. I think the theme of this episode is, obviously it's great that Woodland had a resolution, a positive resolution to that, but just showing, I think this team puts into perspective sort of the dire situations that an athletic program can find itself in the wake of a levy failure. So why don't we kind of rewind a little bit? Let's go back to last April. What changed when the levy failure happened in the Woodland School District?
Let's back up a little bit and talk about levy dollars, especially for some of our younger viewers who maybe aren't accustomed to levy dollars and what those are. So levy dollars are local taxpayer dollars voted on by voters, and those are dollars that go into the school district that fund programs and support systems that aren't paid for by the state. So levy dollars, for example, pay for things like extracurricular activities. 100% of athletics are paid for by levy dollars. Mm-hmm. So when voters, unfortunately, like Woodland Public Schools, who did not vote for the levy back in April, school districts have to make cuts. And so, for example, Woodland had to make cuts to C-team sports in high schools, cut all 11 of the middle school sports, and also had to make cuts for bus transportation for all of the high school athletic teams. So, and fast forward to this fall, all of the parents actually had to make accommodations to find ways to transport their kids to away games. And so that's kind of where we are. And fast forward to the state playoff games, where now Woodland is playing Clarkston this Saturday at noon, and Woodland, the school district, is not funding a way to go to Clarkston. And so that's where the fundraising is taking place. And thankfully, that's all taken care of.
Yeah, but it was pretty dicey there
at
the start of the week.
For a little bit. Yes, it was. For about a 72-hour period, there was no transportation. There was nothing on the table.
So during the normal football season, mm-hmm. I mean, it's one thing if you're, say, the Woodland cross country team or a team or the volleyball team where you're trying to get, a couple dozen people to a road game. But football, as we know, is a whole different animal. You're talking about a program where you're probably trying to get at least 50 kids and all their gear.
Correct.
And all their equipment and all the coaching staff and all that equipment. It's a big endeavor to move all your football stuff from your home base to a road game. Mm-hmm. And so it's one thing if you're going up to Longview like they did to play one of those schools up there, or coming down here to play at Kiggins Bowl, or you're talking about a 30-mile road trip. It might not be ideal to have to figure out all the logistics on that, but when when that draw came out and Woodland drew Clarkston, those of you who maybe don't know Washington State geography as well as so, if you start at Vancouver and head east on Highway 14 and go as far as you can in a straight line, basically until you hit the Idaho border, that's where Clarkston is. It's more than 300 miles away. It's probably how long you reckon it takes to drive there? Probably 4 hours, 5 hours?
Oh, we're talking 6.5 hours, and that's just in a car. We're not talking about a bus, okay? And we're not talking about stopping multiple times. We're not talking about a walkthrough. Woodland is leaving at 10 a.m. on Friday for a noon kickoff on a Saturday. So we're talking about as far east as you can go before you hit the Idaho border.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so You're talking initially. Let's go back and first of all, to put it into perspective, what does a normal high school playoff road trip look like for a football team? What is it going to look like for your normal, well-funded Class 2A program that has to go on the road and play this Friday or Saturday? What happens with hotels? What happens with transportation?
Well-funded, first of all, is usually included a charter bus that is funded by a booster club.
Yeah.
Well-funded is included multiple meals, snacks, well-plenished drinks, hotel, yes. A walkthrough taking place at a park, maybe using a local field or a local college. You're talking about well-funded, yes. In this case, again, when you're talking about a double levy failure, you're utilizing the sources of the community. In this case, there was a flyer that I ended up tweeting earlier today that there not only Mayor Will Finn was involved in the fundraising, but there were a number of businesses in the community as well as well-funded donors that stepped up to make this a well-organized and a well-funded event for these kids to experience.
Yeah, because Woodland has been a program that they're kind of, they've had success in the past, but they're really on the upswing again. They had a couple of lean years, but Coach Sean McDonald has really turned the tide there in just 2 years to where now they've won the league championship. This is a state playoff game. That's a memory of a lifetime, especially for these seniors. You'd hate for it to be anything but a special experience.
Absolutely. First state playoff game since 2013, first league title for the Beavers since 2007. So it's a memory of a lifetime. And the winner of this game has a daunting opponent, most likely waiting for them in the Big Bad Birds of Tumwater, waiting for them as the number 1 seed, most likely in the state quarterfinals.
So when that draw came out and Woodland knew they'd have to go almost as long of a road trip as you could draw out, they had yet to secure the funding. If the community did not step up, if nobody came to the rescue, what would that trip have looked like? What was the worst case scenario that Woodland was looking at when that bracket came out?
Well, the worst case scenario would have been what the Beavers have done in the previous road trips, would have been everyone finding their own way. Basically. So securing rides with parents, with teammates. And I actually asked a couple of coaches earlier this season, because the big L word when it comes to liability, well, what does that mean in terms of what happens if a kid unfortunately gets in a car crash? What does that mean? Well, unfortunately, coaches aren't allowed to organize those rides themselves. That has to fall on the kids themselves. And so that's where the parents step up and help organize those road trips. And again, like you said a few minutes ago, yes, they're only going to Longview. Yes, they're going to Kiggins, or they're going southeast to Washougal, or just down south the Columbia River. But it's a whole different ballgame when you're traveling 360 miles southeast to the Washington-Idaho border. So that would have been the worst case scenario. And, maybe some sportsmanship would have happened again in Clarkston, opening up their gymnasium and sleeping on the gym floor. That has happened, not saying in a state playoff game. But, we've heard stories in the past, and I don't know, the 1980s and the 90s where, you camp out in your opposing gym floor of your opponent. Stories have happened.
I did that once.
Let's hear about it.
Well, it would have been 1994, my junior year in high school. Now, I did not play football. If you can't tell, I'm not exactly built like some of these super athletes that you see in high school now. I was a cross-country runner, and I went to South Eugene High School, and we had a season opening invitational in Vail, Oregon. Similar length road trip. Vail is almost on the Idaho-Oregon border, and we drove over the day before in a couple of vans and slept on, had our cots and slept on the gym floor. Day before the night before a cross-country race when it was probably 100 degrees, I might have got 2 hours of sleep. There's always someone who's snoring. It's never fully dark. You're in an odd situation, and so that was just for a cross country event where. I don't know how many people were there, but then you imagine in the year 2023 trying to have a football team in a situation where you don't have lodging. It's one thing to share a hotel room, but to camp out somewhere completely foreign and then go play a football game the next day. I don't think you'd want that to ask that for anybody.
No, and I can't imagine Sean McDonald in a state playoff game trying to corral, crossing your fingers, trying to get 60 plus football players, hoping everyone makes it safely in a 6.5, 7 hour drive. An hour or two before kickoff. I can't imagine that scenario.
Yeah, I have two high school age daughters, and just with their groups of friends, have you ever tried to coordinate 10 high school kids together? For even I know that teams and athletes, that's one of their superhuman powers for these coaches. It's getting all those kids in the same place to do the same thing and be organized like that, because I'll tell you, it's not easy.
No.
It is not easy getting high school kids with all their distractions and their phones and everything to be on the same page for something as routine as going to a Greater St. Helens League road game. But when you're talking about 400 miles of road and 6 hours of time between you and your destination, that's a heavy ask.
And I saw the initial flyer. Organized initially by Mayor Will Finn. I believe it started a couple of weeks ago when kind of the rumblings about how special this football team was going to be and potentially a playoff run when this was going to have. And when I saw the Clarkston draw, and I thought, oh boy, that's a heck of a lot longer road trip than just driving to Kiggins for a playoff game. It did not surprise me how quickly the donation started. So kudos to the Woodland businesses and donors in the community for stepping up. No surprise, it took just a couple of days to get all of these funds together for not only a couple of buses, but hotel stays, meals, snacks, drinks for not only the teams and coaches, but cheerleaders as well. This is going to be a great atmosphere and a great thing for these kids to remember as well for this state playoff game over on the far east side of the mountains of the state.
Yeah, because no matter how long your season extends past this, it is always the goal of every, especially in the senior class, to make the state playoffs. That is something you can point to say we were one of the best 16 teams still standing. And especially when you like you and I, we work in high school sports the entire year. We see how many teams do not make it to this point. I mean, it is, if you play for, it might be one thing if you play for, say, a Tumwater or a perennial state qualifier, but if you're at a program where, maybe you have some years where the stars align and you make it and you happen to be on that team, you want to cherish everything that you can about that experience. And I'm looking at it I'm trying to put myself in the Woodland perspective, and I got to think that in addition to having this positive experience, it's almost made even better by seeing that your community and your support group rallied around you, and you weren't just an afterthought in the eyes of your community. Yep. This is proof that, what you do is important to your neighbors, to your friends, to your colleagues, to your coworkers.
Absolutely. No question.
So, well, should we talk about just kind of what we're looking at, for the first round of the state playoffs? We have 3 teams at home. Yep. Camas, they I think have set themselves up in the best position with getting that number 3 seed and being home potentially for 2 games.
I think that was one of the 2 questions I had. Number 1 was Woodland going to be the 8 or the 9 seed was one of the questions. And number 2 I had was Camas going to be a top 4 seed. Obviously, I think the question was answered one of 2 ways. The 56-7 win over Federal Way in the Week 10 game, I think, really solidified that. And then when I saw Eastmont go down in the Week 10 game over Richland with that upset, I'm thinking, okay, they're clearly in the top 4. Are they going to get a 3 or a 4 seed? They're getting that 3 seed. They're guaranteed, like you said, a home game through the quarterfinals if they indeed take care of business. Yeah. They're getting that 3 seed hosting a very quality Mount Side team. Mm-hmm. In the 14-3 matchup, that's going to be a quality game at Doc Harris. Yeah,
another team that's home, Skyview. They're a number 5 seed, and so they will be playing at Kiggins Bowl. I think they and La Center are the only games on Friday this week.
Saturday at 2:00.
Oh, Saturday at 2:00. Okay, that's there we go. So Saturday at 2:00, Skyview. They'll play
Skyline.
Skyline
Rematch of the 2011 state championship game.
All right. So how do you think the Storm match up? They obviously are the favorites as the number 5 seed versus the 12.
And as the WIA bracket goes, no question, unfortunately, this is the final time that the Storm will be at home because, like the bracket goes, as the number 5 seed, it doesn't matter win or lose here on out. They'll be on the road.
Yeah. And another home team, La Center. You just heard that they're going to try to play that game on campus, which given our weather recently and how wet it's been, it hasn't been unusual for La Center to play a first round state playoff game at the artificial turf at Woodland, but they're going to try to give it a go at La Center Community Stadium.
Yeah, I talked with John Lambert earlier today, and they have been given the green light to play that game at home, which, as we know, La Center Community Stadium is grass. And so given the weather the last few days, we're going to see if it's going to hold up. So I predict that game will be quite muddy, probably by about halftime on Friday.
All right. Another team in the 1A that, again, I hope these kids really just sort of soak it all in because it is the first time that Seton Catholic has ever made the state playoffs. Congratulations to the Cougars. They're one of the best 16 programs in the state, and they go up to Kings, which obviously that's a tough draw. Kings, a private academy in Shoreline, maybe known more as a basketball school, but definitely one with some rich athletic tradition at the 1A level. But Seton Catholic, they're no pushover.
No, and don't be surprised if we see an upset. I think that's a great matchup for the Cougars, and we see some 12-5 upsets in the NCAA tournament. Don't be surprised if that's an upset. Keep your eye on that game for sure.
Well, and we can't leave without talking about Mountain View, our 3A Greater St. Helens League champion. I have to say, I got a little bit of heat from the Mountain View Peanut section, or Peanut Gallery. There's I said something at the end of or in last week's podcast that yeah, you've had a great regular season. You're 8-1. You go undefeated through the 3A Greater St. Helens League, but you needed that Week 10 win to really put the mark of legitimacy on what you've accomplished this season. Because I'm sorry, you might disagree, but I don't think anyone would be happy with going 8-1 in the regular season and then losing in Week 10. I think an 8-1 regular season means that you're thinking that you gotta get the job done on Week 10 and make it to the state playoffs proper. Well, kudos to Mountain View, you did it. You got to win against a quality Edmonds Woodway opponent, or Edmonds Woodway, took care of business at home. You're in the state playoffs. Everything is legitimized for you, Thunder. There's no one could take away what you guys have done this season with some of the uncertainty and the questions about depth at certain positions. You've only gone and won 9 games in a row, so definitely, I think, regardless of what happens in Mountain View's first round matchup, this is a season that the Thunder can look at with immense pride.
I think the one thing that surprised me, I was surprised that the Thunder got a 12 seed. I know that the 3A is loaded at the top. We all know about Yelm and O'Day and Eastside Catholic and whatnot, but the 12 seed, I know the Thunder can't be happy with a 12. I was a little surprised they got a 12, but that's a tough draw for Mountain View, no question. Yeah,
I think any draw in the 3A, like you said, you're going to run into a juggernaut sooner than later, right. And that's it just happened kind of to come a little bit on the sooner side for Mountain View. And we can't forget about Washougal. Washougal, the runner-up in the 2A Greater St. Helens League, they draw Ording. Ording, as you know, that's right at the base of Mount Rainier, so they hopefully will get some good weather up there and some great views, but they also play some pretty darn good football up there. But I think Washougal, obviously, with what they can do on offense and how they've been resurgent on defense, they're a pretty dangerous number 10 seed.
I think so. I think Ording coming in as the number 7 seed, maybe a little bit of a higher seed given kind of their resume, but their only loss coming against a very quality Enumclaw team. It's going to be a great game.
Yeah, can't wait. But anyway, we are here. It is the state playoffs proper, final 16 teams. Local schools looking for that coveted quarterfinal berth. And circling back, great that Woodland, that the community stepped up to prevent what would have been a real unfortunate situation if they had to really rough it on an occasion that should be a once-in-a-lifetime memory for these athletes that put in so many hard weeks and hours of work. Great to see the community rally, really. And that kind of goes back to the theme I circle back to again, that high school sports at their best are a reflection of the best elements of our community. Be sure to follow us all week at 360preps.com. This Friday, this Saturday, we'll also, I'm going over to Yakima for the 2A, 1A volleyball tournament. We'll have girls soccer to cover. We'll have the state swimming meet. And then, of course, we'll have football. So we will see you later.